Yes, the avoidant loves you, even though their love looks nothing like conventional romantic expression and often feels invisible or inadequate to partners accustomed to more traditional demonstrations of affection. Their love is real, deep, and often more profound than they themselves understand, but it's expressed through a completely different emotional language that requires translation and appreciation rather than transformation. Understanding how avoidants love and creating space for that love to flourish naturally is the foundation for building healthy, lasting relationships that honor both people's authentic needs and attachment styles. The tragic misunderstanding in most avoidant relationships is the assumption that their different way of loving means they don't love at all, or that their love must be converted into more recognizable forms to be valid or sufficient. This misunderstanding creates pressure that triggers their defensive responses and prevents the very emotional availability that partners are seeking. When avoidant love is recognized, appreciated, and nurtured in its natural form, it can grow into something beautiful and sustainable that provides genuine security and happiness for both people. Creating a healthy relationship with an avoidant doesn't require changing them or waiting for them to develop conventional emotional expression. Instead, it requires developing fluency in their emotional language, creating psychological safety that allows their natural affection to emerge, and building relationship structures that work with their psychology rather than against it. This approach reveals that avoidants are capable of deep, lasting love and commitment when their fundamental needs for autonomy, understanding, and gradual emotional development are respected and honored. Recognizing avoidant love in its natural form. Avoidant love expresses itself through consistency, loyalty, and practical support, rather than verbal declarations or dramatic romantic gestures. When an avoidant chooses to spend their limited emotional energy on someone repeatedly over time, when they make space in their carefully protected schedule, when they remember important details about their partner's life and preferences, they are expressing profound love in their natural language. This consistency represents enormous emotional investment from someone who could easily choose solitude or surface-level connections instead. Their love shows up in their willingness to share space without constant interaction, to include their partner in their mental future planning, and to gradually lower their emotional defenses in small but significant ways. When an avoidant stops monitoring exits during conversations, when they begin sharing their authentic thoughts and opinions, when they start asking questions about their partner's inner world, they are demonstrating trust and affection that feels revolutionary within their psychological framework. The avoidant's love is also evident in their protective instincts and genuine concern for their partner's well-being. Even when they struggle to express these feelings directly, they may notice when their partner seems stressed or unhappy and attempt to help through practical means rather than emotional support. They remember their partner's goals, challenges, and important events, demonstrating that their partner occupies significant mental and emotional space despite their sometimes distant demeanor. Their choosing to work through conflicts rather than simply disappearing represents enormous love and commitment from someone whose natural instinct is to avoid emotional discomfort through distance. When an avoidant stays present during difficult conversations, when they attempt to explain their perspective rather than shutting down, when they return after needing space to process, they are demonstrating care that costs them significant emotional energy and courage. Perhaps most significantly, an avoidant's love is shown through their gradual increase in emotional availability and vulnerability over time. The walls don't come down all at once, but they slowly become more permeable as trust and safety develop. This gradual opening represents their recognition that this person and this relationship are worth the risk of potential emotional harm. Creating psychological safety for avoidant love to flourish. Healthy relationships with avoidance require creating psychological safety that allows their natural affection and attachment to emerge without pressure or demand for immediate reciprocation. This safety develops through consistent demonstration that emotional expression won't be met with overwhelming intensity, that vulnerability won't be exploited or used against them, and that their need for processing time and space will be respected rather than punished. Psychological safety includes accepting their communication style and timeline rather than trying to force more immediate or intense emotional expression. This means appreciating their thoughtful responses rather than demanding spontaneous emotional reactions, valuing their consistent presence rather than requiring verbal affirmations, and understanding that their love develops and deepens gradually rather than explosively. Creating safety also involves maintaining your own emotional center and independence rather than making the avoidant responsible for your emotional regulation or happiness. When they see that their partner can be happy, fulfilled, and emotionally stable regardless of their current level of availability, it removes the pressure and responsibility that often triggers their withdrawal instincts. The safety environment includes never using their moments of vulnerability against them during future conflicts or discussions. When an avoidant shares something personal or emotional, treating that information with respect and care, rather than as leverage for greater emotional access, builds the trust necessary for continued opening. This demonstrates that vulnerability leads to greater safety rather than increased danger. Building psychological safety requires patience with their testing behaviors and defensive responses while maintaining clear boundaries about what treatment is acceptable. This means understanding that they may withdraw or become distant when feeling overwhelmed, while not accepting disrespectful or harmful behavior as inevitable consequences of their attachment style. Understanding their unique relationship needs. Avoidants require relationships that enhance their autonomy rather than threatening it, that provide intellectual and emotional stimulation without overwhelming intensity, and that offer companionship without constant togetherness or emotional labor. Understanding and accommodating these needs creates conditions where their love can develop naturally without triggering their defensive responses. Their need for autonomy includes having independent friendships, pursuing individual interests, and maintaining their own living space or personal areas, even within shared living situations. Healthy relationships with avoidants honor these needs as expressions of their authentic self, rather than viewing them as rejection or lack of commitment to the partnership. They also need intellectual respect and stimulation that engages their analytical minds and complex thinking. Relationships that focus only on emotional expression without engaging their intellectual curiosity often feel insufficient or unstimulating to avoidants who crave mental connection and sophisticated conversation as pathways to intimacy. Avoidants require relationships that develop slowly and naturally, rather than following prescribed timelines or escalation patterns. They need freedom to approach greater intimacy and commitment at their own pace without pressure or ultimatums that trigger their fear of being controlled or rushed into vulnerability they're not ready to handle. Their unique relationship needs also include having their subtle expressions of care recognized and appreciated, rather than being constantly asked for more dramatic displays of affection. When their natural love language is valued, rather than criticized as insufficient, they feel encouraged to express care more freely, rather than feeling like their authentic expressions are inadequate. Building sustainable intimacy patterns. Healthy relationships with avoidance require building intimacy patterns that feel sustainable and enhancing rather than overwhelming or threatening to their psychological equilibrium. This involves creating rhythms of connection and independence that honor both people's needs while allowing emotional depth to develop gradually over time. Sustainable intimacy includes regular but not constant emotional check-ins that allow for sharing and connection without feeling like interrogation or emotional demands. This might involve weekly conversations about feelings and relationship dynamics rather than daily emotional processing that can feel overwhelming to avoidant psychology. Physical intimacy also requires patterns that respect their need for both connection and space, allowing for affection and sexual intimacy without pressure for constant physical contact or touch that can feel suffocating. Creating space for them to initiate physical affection often results in more genuine and frequent intimate contact than demanding constant availability. Building sustainable patterns includes creating shared activities and experiences that feel bonding without being emotionally intense. This might involve intellectual pursuits, creative projects, travel, or shared interests that provide connection through common goals and experiences, rather than exclusively through emotional vulnerability and expression. The intimacy patterns must also include respect for their need to process emotions and experiences independently before sharing them in the relationship. This processing time allows them to understand their own feelings and perspectives before engaging in relationship discussions, leading to more authentic and productive conversations. Addressing challenges constructively. Healthy relationships with avoidance require developing constructive approaches to common challenges, including their withdrawal patterns, communication difficulties, and occasional defensive responses. These challenges are manageable when approached with understanding and strategy, rather than criticism or attempts to force different behavior. Withdrawal periods can be addressed by establishing clear communication about needs and timelines, rather than allowing unexplained disappearances that create anxiety and uncertainty. This involves the avoidant learning to communicate about their need for space, while providing reassurance about their continued commitment to the relationship. Communication difficulties can be improved through patience with their processing style and appreciation for their thoughtful rather than spontaneous responses. This includes creating safe spaces for difficult conversations and allowing them time to formulate their thoughts rather than demanding immediate emotional reactions or decisions. Defensive responses can be managed through understanding their triggers and avoiding approaches that activate their protective mechanisms. This includes addressing concerns through collaboration rather than confrontation and focusing on specific behaviors rather than character criticisms that trigger their shame and withdrawal. Working through challenges constructively also requires both people taking responsibility for their contributions to relationship difficulties, rather than making the avoidance attachment style the sole source of problems. This balanced approach prevents them from feeling defective while encouraging genuine growth and change. The potential for growth and healing. Avoidance in healthy relationships often experience significant emotional growth and healing that allows them to develop greater intimacy capacity while maintaining their authentic self and psychological safety. This growth happens naturally through consistent positive experiences, rather than through pressure or therapeutic interventions that feel invasive or controlling. The growth often includes developing greater emotional vocabulary and awareness as they feel safe to explore and express feelings that have been suppressed or avoided. This emotional development enhances their capacity for intimacy while reducing their anxiety about vulnerability and emotional expression. Healing in healthy relationships also includes developing trust in their partner's consistency and developing confidence that love can be safe rather than threatening. This trust allows them to gradually increase their emotional investment and availability without feeling like they're risking psychological survival. The avoidance growth potential includes learning to communicate their needs and boundaries clearly, rather than simply withdrawing when feeling overwhelmed. This communication development improves relationship dynamics while teaching them that they can advocate for themselves without ending relationships. Perhaps most importantly, avoidance in healthy relationships often discover that love can enhance their autonomy rather than threatening it, that the right partner supports their independence while providing emotional enrichment and companionship. This recognition can transform their entire approach to relationships and commitment. Creating mutual satisfaction and security. Healthy relationships with avoidance can provide genuine satisfaction and security for both partners when built on mutual understanding, respect, and appreciation for different but complementary emotional styles. These relationships often develop unique strengths, including deep trust, intellectual connection, and sustainable intimacy patterns that feel both exciting and stable. The avoidant's natural loyalty and consistency provide security that, while different from emotional expressiveness, offers reliable partnership and commitment that their partner can depend on through various life challenges and changes. Their practical support and problem-solving orientation often complement more emotionally expressive partners beautifully. These relationships often develop exceptional communication skills as both partners learn to navigate different emotional styles and needs. This communication competence serves the relationship well through various challenges and creates models for healthy conflict resolution and mutual understanding. The mutual satisfaction includes the avoidant feeling genuinely understood and accepted for their authentic self, while their partner experiences the deep fulfillment of being chosen by someone who doesn't need relationships for survival, but chooses connection out of genuine appreciation and love. The reality of avoidant commitment. When avoidants find the right person and psychological conditions, they are capable of profound commitment and lasting love that rivals any attachment style in its depth and durability. Their commitment, once given, tends to be serious and enduring because it represents a genuine choice rather than desperate need or emotional dependency. Avoidant commitment includes genuine life partnership where they willingly integrate their lives with their partners while maintaining their individual identity and autonomy. This integration happens gradually but thoroughly, creating stable foundations for long-term relationship success. Their commitment also includes willingness to work through challenges and conflicts rather than using difficulties as reasons to leave. When they feel genuinely safe and understood, avoidants often demonstrate remarkable persistence and dedication to relationship maintenance and growth. The reality is that avoidant love, when recognized and nurtured appropriately, can create some of the most satisfying and stable long-term relationships possible. These partnerships combine the best aspects of independence and interdependence, creating relationships that enhance both people's lives while respecting their authentic needs and emotional styles. Yes, the avoidant loves you, and that love can become the foundation for a healthy, lasting relationship when understood, appreciated, and nurtured in its natural form, rather than forced into conventional expressions that feel inauthentic and unsustainable.